So a few years ago, I picked up this PowerSmith dry cut saw. Actually, probably more than a few years ago, and I think I only paid about $100 Canadian for it, so it was a pretty good deal. It was brand new, but by the time that I did get it, it was already like well old and discontinued. I have no idea what year this thing is from, but I've actually really liked it. It's been a good saw, but I've only used it a few times. Really, like I don't have a heavy use for such a saw, or really much of a place to use one, so I haven't used it a lot. But what I have used, it's been a good saw. However, what did kind of suck is one day I went to take the blade off because I wanted to look at how I needed to, if I could, clean out the gearbox and grease it, and it broke. Now, the saw still works. I can still use it. I could cover that up when I cut something and, make sure nothing gets in there. But it's an old saw. I looked around, can't find parts anywhere, and I thought I found a saw that might have a compatible part because it looked like it was basically the same saw. And it might be, but I can't justify the money. It's like $100 for the part. And I can't really justify the money at this moment to try and buy that and take the chance that it's the wrong part. Now, if I knew for a fact it was going to work, I wouldn't have trouble spending the money on it. But I kind of wanted to get into some other stuff, and I wanted to see if I could look at fixing this myself somehow, either modeling it and having somebody 3D print it out of metal, or even maybe casting it myself, even though I don't have any casting equipment. Maybe there's a way I can make a mold and fix it somehow. It is basically just a housing, and it doesn't really hold anything structural except for the pin that stops the shaft from moving, so you can change the blade, and that's what happened, I guess. It put some stress on that and just kind of broke it off. So yeah, I'm gonna take this apart and see what I can do about that. Get that part out and then take a look at everything, or I'm gonna get this off of here and see at least what's going on under there, and if there is anything I can do. Well, I'm sure there is. I mean, just depends on how far I'm willing to go. The fact of the matter is, these saws are expensive, and I can't even afford, like, a cheap one. I think is somewhere still around $300 or so, and that doesn't include like shipping or whatever, because I think that's like a Weaver saw. But anyway, yeah, they're still more expensive, and I don't use one enough to justify spending money that I don't have on a new saw, when maybe there's something I can do with this, maybe a little bit here and there, and I can actually get this repaired. I don't know. But I'm always interested in learning new stuff and trying new things, so I'm going to get this apart and take a look in there. Well, I got the guard off there now, and it looks like this just slides out after I removed 4 bolts in there. I've been, probably a lot of people, anybody watching this is like, why are you bothering with this, man? I don't know, I'm just basically, why not fix it, right? It still works. It's just something to do, keep myself busy, learn a new skill maybe, who knows? I just don't really see any reason not to, even if it does end up costing me more money over the long run than I should have spent, but that's not really the point. So let me see if I can slide this off here. Yeah, it looks like it just comes out, and then there we go. There's a gearbox, and while I'm in here I can clean all this up, and this is what I wanted to do originally, was clean it up and re-grease it, because I knew the grease in there would be old. But the more I'm looking at that, though, the more it looks like the part that it might be the same part from the saw. It's a rigid dry cut saw, and it might actually use the same housing. But well, let me get this off here and I'll get things cleaned up and be back in a moment. Well, I got a cover off. I got a little more than I bargained for here with that. I didn't mean to take that out. That's alright. It's not a big problem to really put that back in. I can clean that off anyway. But yeah, I got to get that separated and then I can get this cleaned up and go from there. I got the housing apart and I actually epoxied this back together so I could like make a cast of it or whatever, make a mold of it. And I'm actually kind of half tempted now just to put it back as it is. I don't know how well that's going to hold. I mean, it's actually just 5-minute epoxy. But I'm pretty tempted. I mean, I don't know. That could just fall apart again. It likely will. But you know what they say. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution that works. So I'm gonna get these all cleaned up. Well, I got the grease all cleaned out. Got those bearings put back. I'm a little hesitant about that one in there just because of that cracked piece. And I don't want it to force this apart and split it open again. But I did actually put a bunch of epoxy in there to kind of reinforce it. And a little bit more there to reinforce and some there, right in there. So I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to give it a damn try anyway. Because given how this looks, like the castings are terrible. And it's probably just as strong as it was before. And it looks like they've already tried to fix this here at some point. So I might even just clean it up a bit more and paint it. Just so I can cover the cracks and I don't have to see them. But one thing I think I am going to do here is sand off the sealing surface a little bit around here and maybe figure out some way to put some kind of seal in there so grease doesn't leak out from there, because this was obviously not very well done either. So that's what I'm going to do. Try that. Well, as usual, I've put way too much work and time into what was supposed to be something simple. But it is what it is. So what I've done here, though, yeah, I've patched it up with epoxy. I don't know. We'll see if it holds. From the outside, you never see it. But, yeah, it's not load bearing that. So, you know, we'll see how it handles, especially how it holds up to grease. What I've also done here too is clean up these surfaces, and like this one doesn't need a seal, but what I've done is clean up these surfaces and sealed them up so that grease won't leak out of this like it did before, because these were not really level surfaces or flush mount surfaces. So I sanded them down, you know, on some paper and did that. And then what I did to seal them is I took some Plasti Dip and I sprayed a bunch of it until there was a sort of thick coating on some parchment paper. And then I basically gently, you know, took the side that I wanted to coat and gently set it in there like that, and then just kind of took it out and, you know, let it set up and dry, and then cleaned it up. And I mean, I think it should work. The only place that really needs to actually be sealed on this thing is right around this gearbox here, and this hole here where actually that one's open. I have to find a solution to that. This one here, where the shaft comes through, is strangely, it just gets sealed with this O-ring, which I'm going to replace anyway, which goes over the shaft and just basically sits against the sealing surface there. So that's how that keeps that sealed. And then the only other thing that's open is this, which I don't understand. There is actually no plug here. No plug came with this. It's just an open hole where you can see the tip of the shaft. And it's actually covered by the blade housing, the blade guard and everything. So it's technically kind of sealed because it's covered, but it's not sealed. So cleaned that up. I've also cleaned up the guard there and everything, and it's bits and pieces, so that I cleaned up all the old grease on it. And on that, I think I'm going to probably use a dry lubricant. So, you know, I've kind of sort of upgraded it a bit in that I've got a seal around here, and yeah, I mean, I'm putting fresh grease in. That's not an upgrade really, but just you know, small things I've done. Just like the seal, that's all. Cleaned it up so that it does make a seal. And then, you know, this stuff in here doesn't matter because it's pretty much open anyway. So I'm going to, I guess, get this back together at this point. Oh, the other hole I should mention that is open is this one right here where this pin goes through. But I found out if I put an O-ring inside here, it will get pressed up against there by the spring and it'll keep that sealed. So I won't have to worry about grease and stuff oozing out there either. Originally the plan was to put some kind of more fluid lubricant in here, like 7590 or something, but it could work at this point as long as I can seal up, I think, this hole, whatever hole on the outside. It would, you know, pretty well work. But then I'd have to add a drain hole and everything, and that's just, you know, that's more trouble than it's worth, says the guy that's gone through all this already. Yeah, and I've cleaned up here as well. So all in all, hopefully the saw should work a little better and maybe be slightly quieter, because I think there might have been a bit of gear noise before with all the dry and caked up grease. So yeah, I'm gonna get this put back together and fill her with grease and go from there. I finally got the saw back together. Honestly, I've spent like, I think it's been like 3 days on this, mostly just waiting for paint to dry, really, and overthinking things. Just because, why the hell not? It's kept me busy anyway. But you know, so I've sealed up the casing and everything. It's turning, everything's good. This is the only place that the case isn't sealed up from grease, though. And there was never any cap or anything in here. I don't know if there was supposed to be, but there never was. So I did the same thing, and I kind of just painted some Flex Plasti Dip around there to make a bit of a seal, just so grease wouldn't leak out of there, because it kind of did that before also, and grease was everywhere. And I'm going to lube this part with some dry lube instead. But that only ever sealed with the housing. Like, it just went on there, and that's what I can't see here. And that's what covered it up, and that was it. So I don't know if there was ever supposed to be a cap there, but there wasn't when I took it apart. And I'm going to keep an eye out for a cap for it, because that would make life a lot easier. But anyway, that's just the Plasti Dips on there should make at least enough of a seal to prevent any grease from leaking out and making a mess. And the rest of the gearbox is sealed up, and who knows, maybe I'm going to go and put a blade on this or take a blade off and it's going to break immediately, but it is what it is. And even if it does that, then I know I got to like make a new part somehow. So I'm going to get this I'm going to get the shroud and everything back on there and make some adjustments because things are crooked and get things into alignment like it should have been from the beginning, but I never did. I mean, this saw is, I believe, manufactured sometime around 2008 or 2009, so it's an old saw, but like I said, I got it brand new and it was probably, well, it was discontinued for a while before I even purchased it from somebody who still had it in the box. So I'm going to get this back together and I'll be back momentarily. Well, after finally months screwing around, I got this work because I wanted to fix this a little so it wasn't floppy and wobbly, and spent quite a bit of time putting some washers in there and adjusting everything and making sure that it was right. And then I had a problem right here, but I got that sorted. So yeah, now it's basically buttery smooth and works better than it ever did before. Some of you guys may even be asking, why not just take the guard off? Well, I have cats who occasionally run around and might end up hitting this thing, and I don't want them to hit a blade. So that's why. But yeah, I'm gonna get the blade and everything back on this, and I've adjusted, that there. Got everything working smooth as butter. So yeah, I'm gonna get that buttoned up and show the final result. Well, it's all back together now, and I did forget about this one little thing right here, which I knew about from the beginning. It's always been a problem. This little nut hits the side, kind of interferes with the guard, but it doesn't matter because I can fix that at a later date. The main thing was about the casing, and for anybody wondering why green, I had it, and I didn't have a matching blue, so I didn't want it to look strange in that way. So I figured I'd just paint it green, and it hides the crack and everything. But yeah, that's the whole unit back together. I still have the PowerSmith blade on it because I've only used it a couple of times. It's been a good blade still, and I'm going to use this one before I break out my very expensive Diablo blade. But she's back together, so let's fire it up. I mean, it sounds exactly like it did before, at least in terms of gear noise and anything you hear there. So it works, I guess. Cuts metal, and it works a little bit better than it did before, even moving it up and down. So yeah, if that's if you liked the video, please hit the like button. Let me know in the comments, if you got any thoughts or whatever. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. It really does help me a lot. Even in letting me know that people like to see this kind of stuff, and that I should keep making videos about it. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video.